Hey friends, I've got an idea. Let's get out in the great outdoors at Luton Park, a county park near Rockford. Friends, I'm looking at this beautiful meadow slash prairie that people are managing here at Luton Park. But here on the edge of the prairie, I see this non-native invasive species. Do you recognize this guy? Look at this. It has green football-shaped leaves. On the underside, it's kind of silvery. This is a very aggressive, non-native invasive plant called autumn olive. Autumn olive is very hard to control. It grows like crazy, and not many animals eat the leaves on it. It's not food for many animals because it's not originally from this area. It's invasive and it's non-native. We need to find ways to control it. Wow, look at that. In this beautiful meadow, there's one little autumn olive. It's invasive. Look at all of the native species in this beautiful prairie meadow. Wow, goldenrod, many types of flowers. Nature is beautiful. Wow, friends, I'm out here in this beautiful meadow at Luton Park, and I found the seed pods from butterfly weed. Butterfly weed is in the milkweed family, and look what's on it. Can you see the little red insects? Those are milkweed bugs. Boys and girls, they're both part of a food chain. The butterfly weed is, of course, a producer, but even insects are consumers. Just look. Does that look tasty to you? Not me. Look at this insect called a milkweed bug. It's feeding on this plant called butterfly weed, which is in the milkweed family. Look at the pod that it's sitting on. This is a seed pod that came after the flowers. Cool. Wow, there's a whole food chain going on here in the meadow at Luton Park. Wow, this invasive plant called multiflora rose, it has thorns on it, produces these berries too. Birds might like to eat them, but it's a very invasive plant that takes over and it outcompetes the native plants. Wow, look at that thorn on multiflora rose. This is an invasive plant that grows in many parks. It kind of takes over an area, and that can rip your clothes and even rip a hole in your skin. Multiflora rose, watch out for it, friends. Friends, one of the cool things about this Luton Park, the county park out by Rockford, is that there are so many different ecosystems. Behind me is forest, and as I come out of the forest, I come out into this huge meadow. The park is managing this meadow. They're trying to keep native grasses and native plants in and trying to keep the non-natives out. It's a tough battle. But look at the different ecosystems that we find at this one park called Luton Park. You should come visit, especially if you like to ride bikes and you love nature. Good park for that. Whoa, watch out for bikes. Hello, friends. Look at all the biodiversity. Many kinds of living things in this meadow of science at Luton Park. Biodiversity. Check it out. There's the eastern cottontail. The eastern cottontail is a native mammal in our part of Michigan. Do you see its white little cottony tail? I wonder what will happen. Wow, look at these tall, straight Scotch pine. They've been planted in many places like this to provide lumber, maybe telephone poles. Take a look. People didn't know back then when they planted them that they would become invasive and kind of take over. They are still very beautiful trees. Unfortunately, because they are non-native, not many animals eat the cones, seeds, bark, or other parts of this tree. That's part of the problem with non-native species. If animals did not grow up with them, they don't know if they're good to eat. Scotch pine, another non-native invasive species that grows in the forests of Michigan. Here's another bridge crossing at Luton Park. A couple different bridges at Luton Park. Look at that beautiful creek. Oh, I think that water is talking to me. Do you hear the sounds? There are many forms of life that live in the waters of that creek. Hey friends, I know on our hike at Luton Park that we've talked mostly about plant invasive species. Well, there are non-native invasive animals too. They're just harder to find because they can fly away or run away. There aren't as many. You all probably know about the house sparrow. That's an invasive bird. And there are many invasive insects too. Plants are easier to find because they're rooted and they stay put. So, well friends, I'm finishing my loop through the forest at Luton Park and I'm coming back out into this great meadow. That's the way it begins and ends at Luton Park. If you park in the South Prairie lot, I would recommend going against the flow of traffic of the bikes so you can see them coming. I usually walk the blue loop. It's a really beautiful loop to walk and really look at different kinds of ecosystems, different places where plants and animals interact. It's a wonderful park. Come out to Luton Park, friends. See you later. Once again, when we get out on the edge of the meadow or field at Luton Park, that's where we see a lot of invasive species. Here's that one called autumn olive again. Remember autumn olive? It has those silvery sides to the green leaves. Something else about autumn olive, the roots of autumn olive actually send out a chemical into the soil that makes it difficult for other native plants to grow. It's called aleotropic. It's another way that invasive plants can really hurt the biodiversity of a certain place. Autumn olive, it's invasive. One of the strategies that makes these invasive plants like honeysuckle outcompete native plants is the leaves stay greener longer and stay on the plant longer. So a bush like honeysuckle will be able to produce more food and outlast some of the other native shrubs that lose their leaves sooner. What a brilliant strategy for an invasive plant called honeysuckle. Hey, look at this. In West Michigan, these are a couple of common deciduous shrubs that are invasive. Look at this one. This deciduous shrub is called buckthorn. Look at the pattern of the veins on those leaves. If you've been at Blandford, you've probably recognized buckthorn. Unfortunately, it grows in many wet areas throughout Michigan. And buckthorn keeps its leaves green for a longer period of time. So it can photosynthesize and make food when other shrubs have lost their leaves. So it has an advantage that way. Also, like you see, many of the leaves look pretty intact. Buckthorn is not eaten by many animals because it's non-native. It's not from around here originally. Also, one more thing about buckthorn, where the roots go into the soil, the roots have been known to send chemicals into the water of a pond that make tadpoles deformed and affect other wildlife species too. So buckthorn is one to watch out for. It's an invasive plant that maybe we can help control in certain public places in Michigan. How about this one? Do you remember this plant? We already looked at this one. This one tends to grow more on field edges. It has a silvery side to the leaf, and then it has kind of a green side. This tenacious invasive shrub is called autumn olive. Autumn olive will actually send chemicals into the soil that make it hard for native plants to grow. Autumn olive, man, come on, look at that. I wish it was that easy to control. Autumn olive has strong root systems. It's hard to get rid of autumn olive. Listen, friends, we've learned about a few native plants and we've learned about a few non-native invasive plants that affect the biodiversity in our ecosystems here in Michigan. Let's see if you can figure out the difference between native and invasive plants that we have right here in Michigan. Let's work together to identify and maybe control them. Peace out, friends.